President Biden is absolutely fit.
He has knowledge of the issues. He has strategic thinking about legislating, all in the head.
I have spoken with the president. He is fully coherent. He is on top of details.
He's sharp. He's fit. He's always answering questions.
I think that Joe Biden's mental acuity is very, very on. He's one of the smartest, sharpest people I've met in D.C.
There's no doubt in my mind that the president is mentally fit for office.
Joe Biden rightly says that he has grown very wise in his many decades in public office.
As it stands today, you believe that President Biden is clear, candid, and convincing?
100%. Joe Biden needs to be allowed to be Joe Biden. He is energizing. He cares about issues. He's Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, there's nobody better than Joe Biden.
We see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issues, how informed he is. And I debate with him about legislation, and not debate, but discuss it with him. He's right there.
A few moments later.
They've seen President Biden. They've lived through his presidency. They've also seen former President Trump. They've lived through his presidency. They've heard these arguments about democracy, about the fate of the election. And yet Trump is not only winning, but winning increasingly by a larger margin. So what is the plan among Democrats to change that trajectory? It sounds like you're talking about saying and doing all the same things, but do you believe that something needs to change?
I think we need to keep working.
All right, guys, so in this continuation of the Democrat Party civil war, it appears as if the Democrats are going to rally behind Joe Biden, or at the very least, that is what they're telling the media, but they're not very confident in Joe Biden, so it seems, because that is the impression that Nancy Pelosi gave me during this interview with MSNBC, in which she basically says, well, it's kind of up to Joe Biden in regards to whether or not he wants to stay, but it seems as if she's not really throwing her support around this idea that Joe Biden should be the candidate.
We have your support to be the head of the Democratic ticket.
As long as the president it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore. But he's beloved. He is respected. And people want him to make that decision, not me.
He has said he has made the decision. He has said firmly this week he is going to run. Do you want him to run?
I want him to do whatever he decides to do. And that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we go with. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table until we see how we go this week.
And see, yeah, so this is a fascinating answer because Joe Biden already said that he's running. He's not dropping out and that he is going to be the nominee. Okay, he said, I'm not the presumptive nominee. I am the nominee. So for Nancy Pelosi to come out here and to say that, well, I want Joe to do whatever he decides to do, as if this is a conversation that's still happening, kind of tells you that behind closed doors, they are, in fact, pushing Joe Biden to drop out, right? And Nancy Pelosi is trying to imply that that decision hasn't been made yet, despite Biden publicly coming out here and saying that, yeah, the decision has been made. So, again, that is a fascinating situation. It really does allude to this idea that behind closed doors, there's a full-blown revolt against Joe Biden, which is what a lot of people are saying. They're saying, listen, publicly, Democrats are supporting Joe Biden, but behind closed doors, they want him out. They want him gone, okay? And it seems as if everybody in the Democrat Party, including the celebrities.
No, it won't be, Jim. And this is a significant new New York Times op-ed from actor George Clooney. Now, to remind viewers, George Clooney was one of those celebrities that headlined a major Los Angeles fundraiser with President Biden back in June. And today, he is saying that he believes it is time for President Biden to step aside from this 2024 campaign. Now, George Clooney wrote extensively about President Biden Biden saying we are not going to win in November with this president. He recounted being with Biden at that fundraiser, saying it's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at that debate. He goes on to say our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw. We're also terrified by the prospect of a second Trump term, that we've opted to ignore every warning sign. This is significant as, of course, George Clooney holds a very large platform. He is well known, but he has also been a longtime Democratic supporter, fundraising not just for Joe Biden, but also for former President Barack Obama. Now, it comes, as you have heard, these deep reservations expressed from various wings of the Democratic Party, from some lawmakers up on Capitol Hill, some donors also indicating that they are concerned about what it would mean to have President Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket in November after that debate. And now you are hearing George Clooney, a key Democratic supporter, key actor, key activist, adding to that chorus of calls for President Biden to step aside.
And the mainstream liberal media propagandists.
Hey, excuse me. Hey, how you doing? What do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? You talked to him more than anybody else have lately, and you could be honest. You don't think he can serve 4 more years? All right, that's an answer.
And the delegates as well, too.
Yes. So, essentially, if Biden ends up running, potentially the Democrats could lose the Senate, the House, and the White House. And it's going to be a bloodbath. The blue states that we have held for many decades might potentially turn red. Trump is doing well when he runs against Biden in those states. And then the swing states, the battleground states, they are looking terrible. So at this point, all the polling indicates that Trump is going to win. So we need to send the best and the brightest out there to run against Trump. He's beatable, but we need to send somebody who's got the energy of a commander-in-chief. Here in Silicon Valley, we have had great leaders, and companies thrive because of good leaders. At this point, it's debatable if Biden can lead our nation. Carrying the nuclear football is a huge deal. And we're not sure right now if Biden is going to be able to do his job.
And the politicians.
I can understand how hard it would be if I were Joe Biden to sit there and to say to myself, after all I've worked for, after all I've accomplished, after all the extraordinary public service I've given to the American people, which we should honor because it has been extraordinary. One of the greatest leaders, to be in that office, certainly in recent times, and who has accomplished so much, it would be so hard to acknowledge that after all of that, you're in the race of your lifetime with somebody you can't beat. I think that's probably really hard for him to acknowledge. I think it's really hard for the people that are working for him to acknowledge. I think they have a moral obligation to look themselves in the mirror and to be able to say, we know we can win this race, or we're sure that we're going to be able to win this race, because there's just too much at stake otherwise. And everything that we're looking at today in terms of the election itself is a fire alarm about the situation this country faces, the situation that our kids face, and America's role in the world, which is something President Biden cares so deeply about.
It sounds like you could get there to where you see yourself calling for him to get out of the race.
I believe the entire future of our country is at stake. People say, I hear them all, this is the most existential election. This is the most important election. This is the most important election. We are really behind. The president did not do a good job during the debate, and the week since has been a really tough week for the White House. And I think it's critically important that they address the concerns of the American people, not ignore them.
They want Joe Biden gone. That is their real feeling behind closed doors. And more of them are coming out here and saying that out loud, despite the rally behind Joe Biden that is happening in public. What you guys just saw there was a Democrat delegate come out and say, yeah, we're going to get destroyed if Biden's at the top of the ticket. George Stephanopoulos, who is a liberal media propagandist, okay, he's a Democrat Party propagandist. He basically said, yeah, I don't think that Biden can serve another 4 years. Okay, he said that. You also had Michael Bennet, the senator there on CNN, basically saying that Biden can't win. So now you have all these people that are coming out against Joe Biden while Democrats are trying to unify behind Joe Biden, which means that, again, behind closed doors, we all know that it is an absolute disaster. It is a train wreck because the numbers don't lie. Because at this point, you have Trump winning in basically almost every poll now, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, okay? It's definitely not getting better for Joe Biden.
Joining us now, NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki. So, Steve, there has been quite a bit of polling done in the 12 days since the debate. Can you show us if there's been any change in the numbers?
Yeah, there has been, and it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret it? So what we're going to show you here, these are 8 polls. These 8 polls have all been conducted entirely after the debate, and these are the results from those polls. And then what you're seeing next to it in the right column here, same poll, their previous poll before the debate. So you're getting each poll compared what they found before, what they found after. A few of these, though, they were conducted back in the spring, so there's a bit of a time lapse on them. But I think you do see some clear patterns here. First of all, this one is obvious. Every poll since the debate has either had Donald Trump ahead of Joe Biden or a tie in one case. And most of these polls have shown some kind of a movement from toward Trump and away from Biden. Trump by 1 to Trump by 2, Biden by 2 to Trump by 2. Not all of them, but you see a pretty clear pattern. So I think what you see here is a Trump lead here. If you average these all together, his lead on average, Trump's is 3.4 points in the post-debate polling. In movement from the previous polls, about 2 points, about 1.5, 2 points of movement toward Trump since the debate. And it becomes a question for Democrats. How do you interpret that? I mean, some Democrats might make the case. You hear them making the case that, look, this is still close. The bottom hasn't fallen out. It's not like Biden's lost 10 points, 20 points, something clear, something definitive. Democrats could say, hey, this is something that can be recovered from. On the flip side, other Democrats, I think your previous guest just was making this point, would look at this and say the bottom line, Joe Biden does not lead in a single one of these polls. Joe Biden's lost ground in most of these polls. And we live in a world where the margins are very thin in elections, one way or the other. And a shift of a couple points may seem small, but it can be decisive. So some Democrats could look at these with just alarm, and others could look at them and say, it hasn't changed that much. It's a matter of interpretation.
Yeah, if you don't think that the dynamic has changed since that debate, then you're delusional, right? Clearly they do, because they wouldn't be freaking out so much if they believed that things were the same, right? That debate did not have an effect. It clearly has had an effect. Trump is up in basically every poll. One poll, he's tied, but the trend is clear, right? That Trump is dominating Biden after this debate. And again, this is why you have Hollywood celebrities and Democrat strategists and senators and reps. You have people that are overtly coming out here against Joe Biden because they know that if the election was held today, it would be a landslide victory for Trump. And I think that the more time that passes, the closer that we get to the election, you're going to start to see Trump pull away even more, because the Biden administration can't fix this, right? There's nothing they can do to fix this. Actually, there is one thing they could do to fix it. And I talked about this in my last video, is that they could just roll out Kamala and say, hey, you're voting for Biden, but you're actually really voting for Kamala, right? And make Kamala basically do all the interviews and to essentially become the pseudo president, even as VP. But they can't do that because Kamala is not competent enough to do that, right? She's not likable enough, and nobody trusts her running the country. So it really is a bad situation for the Democrats, and it just continues to get worse because the revolt against Joe Biden really is more of an indictment on Kamala Harris and the fact that Democrats feel like they probably need a brand new ticket, right? They just need to start over from scratch in order to turn this thing around, because otherwise they would just march Kamala out there and basically make her the figurehead. But the fact that they're not doing that tells you everything you need to know. Okay, that whole ticket is just a dead ticket at this point. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.